Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brainwaves studio. I'm Ian McAllister.
I'm Jamie Adams.
And I'm Ian Chandler. This is Brainwaves episode 61, bringing you the best in board game and tabletop gaming news. These are the headlines for the week of 23rd November 2020. Girls' Game Shelf is coming to an end. Star Wars goes far, far away from FFG, and Wizards of the Coast caught in a gale. All this and more on this episode of Brainwaves. Up first, Jamie.
Yes, I'm afraid some sad news at the top of the podcast this week. The industry-renowned review, community and blog site Girls' Game Shelf has announced that it is sadly going to be closing its virtual doors at the beginning of December. Started in 2015, the site focused on the feminine perspective of board games and featured an all-star cast of female writers and presenters. A post on their front page notes that with the earlier departure of their founder Kiki, the pseudonym of Christina Aymarito, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, and their editor-in-chief Anna Maria Jackson Phelps, stepped down this year, they made a joint decision to bring things to a close. Now it sounds like it's all doom and gloom, but don't despair, because the site ends on a happy note, celebrating all the creators brought to bear, and asks that people follow the individual contributors in their future endeavours. Now, we'll include a link to each of their Twitter accounts in the show notes, and we wish them all the very, very best. You are fantastic, and we hope to hear more from you very soon.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
All the best for the future.
It's a shame that I'm really sad and annoyed by, well, you know, they're closing for a reason, but there's enough white guys talking about board games on the internet.
I think it's a good thing when something like that wraps up well.
Yes.
It comes to a logical conclusion. It stops, but there's still the creators that are involved in that are still going to go forward and Sorry about that. To do their own thing, and it's nice to see when something sort of ends amicably like that. They just sort of stop and like if the time for this thing has ended, but we're going to go and do other things now. That's cool. It's good. It's good to see them ending on a good note, and yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on all the people involved in that in the future for sure.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, Ian, I believe you have news from a galaxy far, far away for a company not so far away.
Yes. On November the 16th, Atomic Mass Games announced that they would be taking over the Star Wars license from Fantasy Flight Games and become the new home of Star Wars X-Wing, Armada, and Legion. This sounds pretty dramatic, but like pretty much every game company in our industry, Atomic Mass, like Fantasy Flight Games, is owned by Asmodee. So this is a transfer of property rather than a hostile takeover.
All wrapped up in the warm Asmodee bosom.
Oh yeah, there's no escape. There seems to be a move by Asmodee consolidating studios to be specialists. Earlier this year we had FFG's role-playing lines move to Edge Entertainment, which is also an Asmodee Group company. Atomic Mass was set up to produce the Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures game, and with this move looks to be Asmodee's specialist miniatures company. Simone Elliott, who has been at the forefront of FFG's relationship with Lucasfilm, will lead Atomic Mass Games as head of studio. Will Schick becomes head of product development, and key members of the team from FFG will be joining them. So, Ian and Jamie, what do you think is actually left for Fantasy Flight Games at this point?
Well, it looks to me like they'll be focusing on the board game side of things, I guess, and LCGs to an extent, because, well, they've got Marvel Champions out there, and obviously Arkham Horror is still doing well for them, and the Arkham properties in general. And they're sort of licensed board games, things like Fallout, that kind of thing. I would imagine we'll see more licensed properties.
I think, Ian, you're forgetting Fantasy Flight's granddaddy of them all. One of Ian's favourite games, Twilight Imperium.
Well, yeah, they've got their own IP, obviously, with things like Twilight Imperium.
And also, Ian, I think you said that there's no getting away from Asmodee, which generally is true, but there are some companies who I believe have managed to kind of break away and form their own thing again. Was it not Plaid Hat Games?
Yeah, but interestingly, Asmodee did take control of the Dead of Winter license from them, didn't they?
I think they
Plaid
did.
Hat
Yes,
went
that's true.
Independent, which was sort of their biggest property. And was it Heidelberg Games early in the year also split off from Asmodee, or is that late last year? I don't remember, but yeah, they split off as well. But yeah, it's interesting to see Asmodee sort of consolidating down and making these specialist studios now. Maybe that'll be a good thing for the individual games and properties. If they've got like a sort of dedicated studio rather than like FFG, who have got a massive focus or had a massive focus on various different types of games. It might be good if there's a company that's only dedicated to miniatures game producing their miniatures games. Hopefully that'll be good for the fans, but time will tell, I guess.
Ian, what do you think? Because I mean, you've read us the story, but I'm sure you have an opinion about this. I know you're, as you said, big Twilight Imperium fan. I don't know how much. Oh no, you're a fan of Armada, is it?
Star Wars Armada. I've got the core set, which I have taken out and played using the Dreadfleet models. Which
nice.
has been excellent with the Dreadfleet models, and the best use of Dreadfleet models I think anyone has done without including painting them.
Certainly better than Dreadfleet.
Oh yeah.
I was about to go, controversial. I went, that's not controversial at all.
It's not controversial, yeah. It's the least controversial thing I could say. Anyway, back to FFG. I mean, it could be great. These nicely siloed companies could be really efficient, and like 1 to 2 people could make great models, that kind of stuff. So they've got all that specialist knowledge. But what I worry is the lack of cross-pollination. It's going to be much harder for ideas to cross between games. And so much of good design is different ideas and just chatting to different people and just getting those different ideas into your design and figuring out how they work. Yeah. So, I don't know. I hope that FFG manages to focus really hard on the board games and has a large number and a large variety of board games. Because if if they're losing stuff, then they need to replace that variety with other things for the design pedigree.
I just remembered also that Corey, who was one of their main designers, he left to set up a new studio as well, didn't he? But I think that was also under an Asmodee banner.
Corey Koneska.
I think so.
Yeah, I'd have to double check that, but I think he was off to set up a new Asmodee studio.
Yeah, he's talked about playtesting a few times on Twitter, but no concrete news yet, I don't think.
Well, we'll bring you more on that as the situation develops, folks, and obviously we'll be keeping an eye on what FFG get up to as usual.
Yeah. Speaking of big companies, Ian, you have news about Wizards of the Coast.
Yes, per Wizards cannot seem to catch a break, but it seems to be all of their own making. So the news broke on, today, basically 20th of November, it just broke just before we came on, that Gale Force 9 is seeking $950,000 in a dispute with Wizards of the Coast over licenses for Dungeons & Dragons products that went south. Gale Force 9, if you're not familiar with them, they produce a lot of sort of licensed games like Firefly, and they also Star Trek game, and they've also produced a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons miniatures and some board games as well, including the much loved Tyrants of the Underdark and
Dune.
Yeah, some small game.
This podcast's favorite game.
It's about deserts. I don't know. Who knows? According to
your humor is trying to be dry, but it's not working, mate. I'll shut up. There'll be a podcast where I will not mention Dune, but this is not it.
That's one of those tumbleweed. I think I'm being attacked by tumbleweed. Okay. Anyway, according to Gale Force 9, the suit arises from a situation that developed in May of this year when Wizards wanted to bring its arrangement with Gale Force 9 to an end a year earlier than planned, December 31st, 2020, as opposed to the same date in 2021. After no agreement was reached, Wizards stopped approving products for release in international markets. And if you'll remember rightly, we reported on the Dragonlance lawsuit recently where Wizards also stopped approving basically drafts of the new Dragonlance books. This seems to be a modus operandi for them. Breaches of contracts have been alleged back and forth between the two companies over the last few months. The Gale Force 9 suit listed 3 causes of action: breach of contract, breach of implied duty of good faith and fair dealing, and declaratory relief and temporary injunctive relief. There are 2 licenses in dispute: a 2017 license for translation and distribution of Dungeons & Dragons products in a number of foreign countries, and 2008 license for distribution of D&D products worldwide. Gale Force 9 CEO Jean-Paul Briscotti said in a statement to ICP2, "We still hope this can be settled between us, but the timeline for a legal resolution has meant we have been forced to go down this path at this time." So yeah, Wizards up to yet more illegal shenanigans. Do you think they're closing ranks on some licenses, trying to bring more stuff in-house? What do you think is going on there, chaps?
I don't know, before we make any comment, if, like me, anyone who's listening may be confused by the phrase temporary injunctive relief, I just had to look that up, and off Google. Injunctive relief, also known as an injunction, is a remedy which restrains a party from doing certain act or requires a party to act in a certain way. It's generally only available when there is no other remedy at law and irreparable harm will result if the relief is not granted. Irreparable? Irreparable.
So presumably Gale Force 9 are asking for that because Wizards have basically stopped saying stopped doing what they said they would do in the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Netrunner went the way of Wizards when Fantasy Flight Games had control of it, and that no one knows exactly what happened there, but apparently that was to do with license disputes as well. Basically, the license came up and Wizards asked for more money, and FFG weren't willing to pay it, so the license returned to Wizards of the Coast. But in this case, this is Wizards pulling a license from Gale Force 9 part way through the contract. I don't know how telling that is, really.
Yeah, and doing so in a very strange manner by just refusing, not actually saying we're pulling this license or we're cancelling this contract, but just refusing to abide or allow new products. Yeah, it's strange. I mean,
that it is.
Yeah, they're governed by contracts, so whatever they're doing, I don't know, I'm lost.
Is it entirely possible that the contract was set up in a time when Wizards was maybe not performing as well financially, and now that they're seeing such a return on Dungeons and Dragons as, you know, a kind of main selling point, that they're going, actually we might want to take that back. Now, with that being said, them choosing to do it a year early may have something to do with the coronavirus pandemic, or it may be for other reasons that we're not aware of. I'm just thinking it may be similar to, if you pardon the slight tangent, the way that Marvel kind of not farmed out but sold several of its licenses to characters like X-Men or Spider-Man or the Fantastic Four when it wasn't really using them, and other companies made money off them, and now Marvel obviously is almost ruling the world. They're like, can we have our stuff back? And Sony, for example, with Spider-Man's going, no. Is it Sony? I think it's Sony. Maybe it's Fox.
Yeah, it was.
Sony, yeah.
It was
Fox,
Sony.
Fox's X-Men,
I think they came to
it?
arrangement eventually, yeah. That's a good comparison.
I thought they loaned. Anyway, this is not the superhero podcast. That's Cape Waves, which is we're recording next.
You two can do what you want in your own time.
Oh my.
Anyway, let's we'll bring you more on that as the story develops. No doubt we'll hear more on that as the case actually comes to court and resolves. Let's move on to the news. Any Jamie, talk about things making waves. Pokemon is still selling like gangbusters.
Pokemon is still riding high like a surfing Pikachu from Pokemon Yellow. I hope I got that reference correct. Yep, we'll
get complaints.
We will, and if you want to complain, please send it to Pokewaves, the Pokemon-based podcast that we're recording after Cape Waves. For the last couple of podcasts, we've been talking about boxes of Pokemon cards, first edition, first printing, the original Pokemon card selling for, as you said, gangbusters amount of money. And we have another one. I mean, is the bubble going to burst sometime soon? Are people presciently paying pounds? Is Pokemon Pass popping? I don't know. But another first edition base set of Pokemon cards is up for auction. This time, it went live with an opening bid of $290,000 US. That is $348,000 with the auction fee. Bids opened at 7 p.m. UK time on Thursday the 19th of November, and by the time this podcast goes out, it will have wrapped up. It finally sold for $360,000 dues. And we also talked last time about content creators like Logan Paul and Logic getting Pokemon cards as appreciable assets. This is still minorly ludicrous.
Lots and lots of money. There's also, I saw a little article about early piece of Magic the Gathering art for Demonic Tutor. Went on the same site. This went on the same auction site for something like $190,000.
Oh boy.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Gaming collectibles. Who knew?
I was just going to say, does this mean we've officially hit the year where people who grew up with Pokemon cards and this kind of stuff now have cash? or a few of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, it's what drives a lot of our hobby is basically people who now have a lot of money and are looking to spend it on things like fancy Kickstarters for several $100s. And yeah, that's a bigger conversation, I think.
Yeah, who would
Yep.
who would do such a thing? Actually, I haven't, but I'm being ridiculous. Anyway, Ian, I believe you've got some news about the coronavirus pandemic, funnily enough, that is impacting next year.
Yes. Despite the prospect of vaccines on the horizon, COVID-19 has started to make its impact felt on 2021 convention season already. The Game Manufacturers Association, GAMA, will no longer hold its annual trade show in Reno next March. They will be holding instead a digital version of the event, with presentations, an exhibitor hall, etc. GAMA have also announced that they will be holding a friendly local game store day on March the 27th to drive traffic to GAMA retail stores. So, yet another online convention. However, this one's the trade one. This is the one that people in the industry go to, not to buy games, but to chat, make connections, to, do business, basically.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that goes because GAMA was the last sort of convention that happened in real life before coronavirus hit. So, it hasn't had a chance to do a sort of digital version yet. So, hopefully they'll learn some lessons from the conventions that have been before. And I'm still planning to do a special on digital conventions, get some people on to talk about their experiences and what's gone right, what's gone wrong, that kind of thing. It's great that we've got vaccines on the horizon and that all that's looking really hopeful, and hopefully by the end of next year, because it's going to take at least that long to vaccinate the majority of the population, we can see each other again and have events and that kind of thing. But I can't see, like, can you guys see like Games Expo happening next June?
No.
Absolutely not. I mean,
we might have a lot of people vaccinated by then, but there's still going to be a bit of a hum and a haw about having thousands of people in an enclosed space, right?
Yeah. I remember, like, everybody knows Concrud, and I remember getting it from Glasgow Games Festival, which has, like, 200, 300 people rather than tens of thousands.
Yeah, I'm sorry, mate. It was a pancake breakfast. I'm sorry. It was a moment of weakness, you know.
Oh, that breakfast was good.
It was. Yeah, so, I mean, I want to get back to conventions. I want to see you guys and play board games. Of course I do, but, yeah.
You want to do it safely.
I want to do it safely and make sure I'm not, like, harming anyone. Especially someone like myself. I've been working all the way through. For those who don't know, I work in a bike shop in Edinburgh. So we've been open right the way through. And so I've been trying to see people as little as possible because I'm exposed pretty much every day, or potentially exposed every day. And, I just can't see... Yeah, I can't see conventions really happening in the same way as they would have normally next year. 2022, sure. But, it's going to be a while before these conventions get back to normal, I think, unfortunately.
But you don't worry, listeners. Ian takes the time to see both me and Ian. I say see, listen to us, and we're, a responsible distance away, about 50 odd miles.
Yeah, and that's the distance I like to keep them at, mostly.
So, next up is Jamie with a really interesting project.
Yes. Now, the Endangered Alphabet Project is a Vermont-based non-profit initiative to protect, in their words, endangered, minority and indigenous cultures by preserving their writing systems, which they believe, the writing system is really a cornerstone of a culture. If you think of something, you will write it down. I mean, heck, that's why Ian writes so many articles and why Ian's able to write down so many things to program some rather beautiful art. I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, the statistics of the Endangered Alphabet Project suggests that 85% of the world's alphabets are endangered, and over half of the 6,000 to 7,000 languages and alphabets that we have in the world will be extinct by the end of the century. So one of their initiatives is, I'm going to say this wrong, ULUS, or ULUS. ULUS, which is a Kickstarter project for a board game to preserve the Mongolian language. Now, the Mongolian language itself right now is only really based in Inner Mongolia or Southern Mongolia, which is itself a province of China. And I feel like I should be delicate here, but I'm not going to. It's being suggested the Mongolian language is in danger of being exterminated because it has been decided that those people should not speak Mongolian because that's not Chinese. Yeah. So Ulus, again, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize, is based on a conflict between heroes, monsters, and gods of Mongolian legends and folklore in the attempt to determine the fate of the Mongol Empire. So players will have kind of an avatar of an individual, like a hero or a god or a monster, and build their own civilization. And then their plan, their aim, is to win the annual festival of the 3 traditional Mongolian sports, which are wrestling, archery, and horse racing. Now, the game itself, there's slightly thin on the ground on details right now, but it has said on the Kickstarter page that it will be a whole lot of fun. That's something to look out for. It's also going to be in English and Mongolian and have 3 different alphabets as part of the rules. It will be the Latin alphabet that we know, the Cyrillic alphabet, and the Mongolian language. Now, the Kickstarter for it runs through till the 11th of December. If what I've said interests you in any way, have we look at it. I know we don't often do, this is a new Kickstarter, so you should have a look at it. But I think it's the background behind it. I found this story. It's the background behind it, and the project itself caught my eye. I think it's very interesting. It's very poignant. I didn't think, how many alphabets are still out there in the world, how, indigenous and minority cultures have their own alphabets, and how under threat they are. And actually on the Endangered Alphabet Project site, there is an atlas of kind of endangered alphabets, and it's astounding.
Yeah, it's a really cool project, and it's really interesting to see games being used in an educational way. I'd like to add a little sort of warning here about Kickstarter projects, and we're going to be looking into this story a little bit more, but we've had an update from one of Kickstarters that Jamie is backing right now about really high additional fees that might be coming to some Kickstarter projects because of Brexit and new VAT rules that have come in. So do be a little careful about what you're backing and when it's getting to you right now, because if it gets to you after Brexit, it's entirely possible the price you pay will be quite a bit higher because of that coming in. Hopefully some creators will be able to get around that. But yeah, we're seeing some stuff at the moment where there's new VAT rules coming in, and it's not good for small publishers and Kickstarter, but we'll bring you more on that once we've dug into a little bit more and know what's going on.
Moving on. Ian, I believe we are rolling back to a previous podcast with some news about Sarah Thompson.
Indeed, back in episode 55, we reported about Sarah Thompson's combat wheelchair design for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. They've released a set of free resources and rules centering on introducing characters and campaigns with disabilities into R. Talsorian's Witcher tabletop role-playing game. When interviewed about the resources, Thompson said, "A lot of people play tabletop RPGs, and a lot of us exist in the general population worldwide. It's time our games and our stories truly reflect this. It should be acknowledged in official books. It'll take time, but I believe normalizing disability, chronic and mental illness, and neurodivergency can and will happen. It has to. We exist, and we want to exist in our fantasy settings. We have and always will belong here." They're a fantastic advocate for neurodivergency, mental illness, chronic illness being included in games online. They are a really great person to follow on Twitter. They've come under a little bit of attack for some of the content they're putting out, which is kind of maddening, especially when it's in the Witcher RPG. And now I haven't read the books, but as I understand it, in the books, the Witcher is meant to be disabled. Is that right, Jamie? Because you've read the books of it.
I've read a couple of books. Yeah, Geralt suffers.
Geralt's got a disability. Yeah.
Yeah, he suffers it, and it's how he deals with that, and I don't know about overcomes it, but manages to, use it in his. What am I trying to say? I've seen
them being mansplained a bit about The Witcher when they write for The Witcher RPG.
It's the same thing as we said. It's the same thing as we said with Thompson's Combat Wheelchair, which Combat Wheelchair is a great design. We talked about it ages ago. Yeah, episode 55, and the same reasons. But you can't have a wheelchair in this game. It's not real. It's not real enough. It doesn't work. You are playing a game with dragons and magic. Grow up. I'm sorry. I've had a little bit of anger and frustration just building in me for a wee while. So this might be a little bit of venting. So I apologise, but also I don't apologise seriously.
Coming away from the serious side of D&D for a second, it's time to go once more back into Comic Relief Dungeons & Dragons. Back in episode 48, we talked about Comic Relief Dungeons & Dragons, and it's come around again. Questing Time host and DM Paul Foxfort is going to guide 4 new comedians through a session of Dungeons & Dragons. Those comedians will be Phil Wang, Sally Phillips, Lou Sanders, and James Acaster, who will be at the digital table facing their own adventure. Last time around, the people playing raised £25,100 for Comic Relief. And as with the last event, the live streamed game will allow people to donate to vote on items that will appear to help or hinder the adventures, create creatures, generally get involved for a wee bit of cash and give some money to charity. This episode is going to be showing on December the 4th. We'll link to that on our social media when it's out and about.
A giant thanks to our Patreons, especially our executive producers, Lucky Sparrow Gaming Cafe, and Shaun Newan from the GAMA team.
Yeah, if you'd like to help us out, then you can join the Patreon for $1 a month where you get an extended version of the cast. And if you want to find other ways to support us, you can go to the Support Us page on the site. That's got various direct donation modes. We've got some Amazon affiliate links in some of the articles as well. And we have hooked up with Metallic Dice Games recently, who have very generously given us a wee code to give away to our listeners and readers. That's Roll with Brains, all capital letters. And we will get a little cut and you will get a bit of a discount. So go and check them out. They make some very nice, heavy dice.
Extended cast is excellent this week because Jamie makes a mistake literally 2 seconds into the cast. Perfect. Professional all round. Sorry, Jamie.
Nothing's gone wrong. Nothing's gone wrong.
And this is why we have editing.
Indeed. Jamie, Uno, and game shows?
Yes. So I'm afraid, once again, I did not manage to get any Monopoly news, but I have got a...
Boo.
Hey. Hold your booze. Hold your hoorays. I have got a double feature for you of classic games in slightly new formats. Sort of. Now, as Ian alluded to, Uno is 50 years old next year. I thought it was
It certainly feels like it.
I was going to say I thought it was a little bit older than that, but also I was about to say I thought it was older than that, but I also thought it was younger than that. So what I'm actually saying is I'm talking nonsense. So the company behind the in development Ticket to Ride TV series, which we covered all the way back in episode 31, that was almost half the entire podcast we've ever put out ago, which is Propagate. They've teamed up with Mattel Television to develop a family game show variant, or family game show based on Uno. According to the entertainment magazine Variety, the Uno game show will feature 4 teams who will face off to become the ultimate Uno champion. The unscripted series will incorporate audience participation, physical challenges, and trivia, and other creative elements. What they are, yet to find out. I'll be honest, that sounds mildly interesting. But apart from slapping the Uno name on it and, maybe like, oh, you've managed to make the other team skip a go, or I don't know. Right now, I'm not seeing it where the Uno stuff is coming in. But then again, I know nothing about it other than it's pretty much just been announced.
Will they play by the controversial rules of you cannot stack +2s? Which is clearly nonsense.
You cannot stack +2s, I believe, is standard Uno protocol. And if you do that, you're deviating. You're the kind of person that puts all the money you get from taxes and stuff into the centre of the board in Monopoly. And if you land on free parking, you get that money. You're like those people, Ian.
Stacking +2.
The worst people.
Part of the
I don't know about the worst people. I'm just saying. I'm saying you're a mad, crazy deviant, and I respect your I respect your boldness. But yeah, also, I didn't realise Mattel had a television division. Also, that's fun to say. I can't think what we have or may get to see yet from the Mattel television division. Anyway, moving on from the Mattel television division.
Uno.
Yeah. Dos. My second piece of news is not about Monopoly, as I said, but it is about Cluedo. Now, mirror, mirror from the projector, what version of Cluedo did I not expect? I'm not good at rhyming.
That's why we don't pay you any money.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can I fire myself? I'm done. I'm out.
I think we should fire Jamie out of a cannon.
You all love me. There is no murder in Cluedo Disney Villains Edition, but one of you Disney villains has hidden a magical McGubbin thing in a secret location, and your evil villainous job is to find out who has the magic item, what is the magic item, and where is the magic item. Now, the characters you can play as in this game are Maleficent, Jafar, Dr. Facilier, Ursula, Hades, and Queen Grimhilda, which I didn't realise or forgot, I can't remember, was the name of the evil queen from Snow White. Now, the items are a scepter, a scarab, a talisman, a shell, a poison vial, and a poisoned apple. And locations available include the Fathoms Below, the Underworld, and the Other Side. And that's out now. So if you like Cluedo, or Clue if you're in America, and you like Disney villains, I mean, this might be the thing for you. I mean, Villainous has done very well, so it could be another thing.
I'm thinking they're sort of cashing in a little bit on the villain side of Disney with the Villainous doing such great guns, which is good. Anyway, enough of this nonsense. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. If you like what you've listened to, and I can't blame you for not, then the best way to help us out is to share the podcast and drop us a review and rating on iTunes. You can also follow us on the usual places. Twitter, we're at The Giant Brain. Instagram, Giant Brain UK. Our Facebook is The Giant Brain. Website is giantbrain.co.uk, and you can email us with any complaints at giantbrainuk@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.